Hi, I'm Keith Fenwick. We're in the Valley of Stonethwaite today in Borrowdale, and behind us we have a wonderful composition, and the dominating mountain, the focal point, is Eagle Crag. It's called Eagle Crag because in the old days the golden eagles used to nest there. Of course the farmers didn't like it because they used to attack the lambs, but it makes a wonderful composition. When I come to an area like this, what I tend to do is to walk around and I frame my shots like this and decide which is the most pleasing composition, and what my right hand should be, what my left hand section of the painting should be, and then there's my composition. And sometimes I do a little tonal study, because the most important thing in a painting is to establish your lights and darks. These are the colours I'll be using on all the paintings in this series. Leave a space between your paints, so when your brush goes into one colour, you don't catch the other colour. Just common sense painting. I always draw with a dark brown water soluble crayon, because I don't like pencil marks in a painting, and as you work down it washes out. Well, there's our simple drawing. Let's put the sky in. Now we've got cumulus sky today, but I'm going to do a different kind of sky because I've been painting cumulus skies all week, and I want something here to balance the dark mountain on the right. It's one of the principles of design. I want darker clouds on the left to balance the dark mountains. So I'm going to have some tissue in my hand to control the flow of the paint, because the secret of watercolour painting is knowing how wet the paint on the brush is in relation to the wetness or dryness of your painting. So I'm just going to put a little raw sienna underpainting first of all, and this will allow me to wet the paper. I haven't stretched paper for, it must be 25 years. If you use a good quality paper and something that's 140 pound weight and above, you don't need to stretch it. So I'm just putting on a raw sienna underpainting. I'm using my large hake for this because I've got to do a sky quickly to avoid hard edges appearing, because hard edges appear when you let the underpainting get dry before you put in your cloud structures. I'm just taking off the surplus, look, with this thirsty brush, and I'm going to put in some cloud now. So I'm using some cobalt blue and a bit of Payne's grey blue. I'm going to I'm not copying the cumulative cloud, I'm just going to have a good wiggle look. I want these, I'm going to have some darker clouds here to balance the dark mountain. Put a few over here like this. Just dance across the paper, look. Just pretend you're doing the foxtrot, and I'm turning the brush sideways and I'm just twitching out, look like that. Now I need some darker colour. Payne's grey, cobalt blue, just a touch of red now, but not too much red. That's what I want. This is watercolour, so don't forget when it dries you can lose 30% of your colour, but the paints I'm using are very strong in pigment. They're artist quality and they're very strong in pigment. Now let's have a look at that. Just a little bit at the top there. Right, we'll rinse the brush, take off the surplus water, and we'll take off the surplus paint that's running down, look, because you'll be working at home at an angle of about 15 to 30 degrees. If I do that, you can't see what I'm doing. Now, using a bit of tissue, I'm going to put in a few clouds. All I'm doing is dabbing, turning the tissue, just to get an interesting sky. Once you've stained the paper, of course, you must turn it round, otherwise you're going to get spots on the paper. So I have a few in here like that, look. We'll soften that, take off the surplus here. We'll have a little bit of cloud over here, take a bit out of there. This is just something that every individual artist will do. So every painting will be different, not something you can teach, but that's what makes painting exciting. Every painting is different. You can have 6 artists out here working and we'll all use different colours, different techniques, and we'll get a different type of painting. But that's what we want. I'm just putting a little bit in there soften the edge of that. Now I need to let that dry before I progress any further. So I need to have a pause until it dries. The secret of painting any sky, you must never let the underpainting get more than 1/3 dry. If you put wet paint over something that's more than 1/3 dry, when the shine's gone off, it can't soak in. So you're going to get cauliflowers or lollipops as we call them. And we don't want that. That's why we say to you, you must do a sky in under 3 minutes. That doesn't mean it takes 3 minutes to do the sky. Everything you put on, you spend 3 minutes thinking, 1 minute doing. You've got to plan your painting before you ruin a harmless bit of watercolour paper. You've got to be a thinking artist. We're going to paint in the structure of the mountain now. Our main mountain, Eagle Crag, the focal point in the painting. I'm going to start by applying a raw sienna with just a little bit of sap green in, just to paint an underpainting. Just to give a white background, a light wet background, so when I put colour in, it'll fuse together. So let's start getting the shape of Eagle Crag. A bit of Payne's grey with a bit of burnt sienna. And let's get the shape of this. It's quite important we get the right shape. So it's coming down like that. And then it drops off here like that. Comes down here sharpish. Across there. Down there. Like that, little kink there. And then down here. Now you must immediately wash that down. We don't want a line around the top. What the beginner does is to draw it like this and then let the pen dry, and you've got this line around the top. A bit more blue, bit of Payne's grey, bit of burnt sienna. Let's have a look. There's a bit of a grass area there, comes down here, comes like that. Now this is going to dry lighter. I just want a little bit of green in there now, because there's odd patches of green in there. A little kink on the top there. It's important to get the angles right. Leave little bits of paper showing through. Bit of sap green now, bit of Payne's grey, and we're going to start putting in, I think it's just rough grass. It's not some kind of foliage up there. Sometimes it's a good idea to bring a pair of binoculars along that you can use to see exactly what it is. But I think it's just rough grass up on the mountain. Bit of burnt sienna now, bit of blue, bit of sap green, bit of cadmium yellow, just a touch of raw sienna. Let's just switch that across like that. Build up the structure. You'll find that when you're painting like this, with the light effects and cloud studies and so on, cloud coming across, you'll find your paintings changing all the time. Some darker bits in there now. My toilet roll's going for a run. Perhaps a bad expression to use, but never mind. It's blowing across in the wind. Let's just build this up here. Bit of raw sienna in here. The detail will come in once it's dry. I'm just roughing it out here. There's some rough grass going down there. Like that. A bit coming across here like that. There's a bit of dark up here. Bit of dark over there. And then over here, got some dark bits coming down like that. Bit of soft green down here. Did a bit of raw sienna now. Before I do any more work on there, I shall let it dry. Let's start on the right hand mountain. This is much darker. And what we've got coming up here is there's a tree line here. I'm using a mix I've already got with a Payne's grey, adding a bit more sap green. Paint this mountain in, wet it. Some of the darker elements, some Payne's grey, some burnt sienna. A few little nicks in the shape of the mountain. Gets up at the top there, goes up and down like that, and then like that it tails off. There's an awful lot of foliage on here, a lot of trees growing up. Now you can't paint every tree on the mountainside, it would look silly, so what we're going to do is just give the impression that there's trees growing up there, just dabbing away like that. Whole range of trees coming down here. They're starting about here. It's all wet, so I'm not going to get any detail. And they're coming down like that, down to ground level. No detail here, because the underpainting is wet, and all I'm going to get is some blobs. Nice blobs. So I'm just building up this foliage coming down here. Bit of lighter green, touch of raw sienna to soften it, and up here we'll just have a bit of, there's a whole range of little bushes across here. Very fiddly when there's lots of trees like this. There's a dark section up here, look, which I need to put in. Just using some Payne's grey, with a bit of burnt sienna. It's coming up here like this, a few darker bits. Let's just add a few darker bits over here. I'm going to carry on down the bottom, we'll come back to this. There's a few trees down here, look. In fact, there's a lot of trees. Down at ground level, there's a lot of trees here. I love trees, but when you're doing a painting with hundreds of them in, it's time consuming. Just adding a bit of light yellow now to mix in there. That'll soften those trees a bit. I'm going to use a bit of masking tape now to control the height of the stone wall. I'm going to stretch this across here, look, and I'm going to kink it a little bit. I'll just put a little bend in it. Looks like we've got company. I can now work down and put in these trees down to the tape level. Now I get a nice straight bit for the stone wall. So there's a group of trees here. Payne's grey burnt sienna mix. Bit of yellow as I go up the fell side. There's a stone wall over here, so we'll just put that in. Bit of Payne's grey, a bit of burnt sienna, and lots of water. It's quite dark, but there's a stone wall coming down like that. I'm just going to darken the bottom edge here before I take the tape off. A few trees at the back of that stone wall. I'm doing all this with a size 8 round brush. Now let's take the tape off. And then there's a stone wall in front of here. There's a little bit of grass going across here. And then we have another stone wall coming down there like that. And then right across the painting we have a stone wall right across here. Now I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to work on this side a bit and put the other mountain in, give that stone wall a chance to dry. Now over here we've got this nondescript mountain coming down. Not a very nice shape. It's mainly a area of scree. There's not a lot of shape in it. So what we'll need to do is add a bit of, put a few gullies in that in. So I'll come to a very small rigger, bit of Payne's grey, bit of burnt sienna, and we'll just try and capture a few little bits coming down. It's still wet, so it's just going to fuse in. Just going to wiggle it a bit. There's a few screes and that coming down, a few rocky outcrops. Again, I need to let it dry before I put in the detail. There's a few little dots down here, a few little bushes, shrubbery. These are all in the distance, of course. And down this area here, there's a few little bushes down here. Bit of sap green, bit of Payne's grey. Obviously they've got to be small, but there's a few little bushes coming down across this slope. There's actually a stone wall coming right down here. Very fine line. And there's another one a bit darker coming across here. Like that. And little bits of shrubbery. Right, let's do a little bit of work on this side. There's a stone wall here. Back to the 8 brush. Bit of raw sienna. There's a stone wall coming around here like this. And across here. Bit of burnt sienna. Bit of Payne's grey and a bit of red. Put the coping stones on like that. And we'll get the knife and we'll put the coping stones on like that, just moving the paint around. Put some stone work in like that, just like buttering your toast in the morning. Easy can be. Bit of sap green, a bit of raw sienna. We're going to put this foreground grass in, look. Bit of more sap green, more raw sienna, get a richer green, that's it. Bit of Payne's grey to the mix, gives you a darker green, that's it. Bit of burnt sienna, bit more Payne's grey. We'll just put a little bit of texture in here, look. Just move this around a bit. Now there's a stone wall through here, but it's not a good idea to put a wall right across your painting, because what you're saying to the viewer is, don't come into my painting. We're fortunate here, there's a gate in. If there hadn't been a gate in, I would have put one in. Otherwise you're saying, don't come into my painting if you've got a continuous wall. While that's drying, I'm going to just fill in around here a bit. and we'll put these trees in here. There's a group of trees here, so I'll use the round brush, sap green with a bit of raw sienna, and we'll put a tree in here, look, and we've got this type of fir tree up here. So I'm using the angle brush that gives me more control for the fir tree. Get the little trailing bits like this. Bit more Payne's grey to it. I want this one to be darker. Some kind of a spruce. Softer green now for the bush that's next to it. I use the angle brush for control purposes when I want a bit of shape and more control. There's a little light coloured bush here, so we'll just put that in. I'm going to just go across here and add a few light bits. I need a little bit of white acrylic out now. It's just another kind of watercolour acrylic. I'm going to mix that with traditional watercolour just to put a few highlights on the trees as I go across. Few bushes going up here, look. I'm going to soften this area here now. There's some foliage and that in there. It was a little bit harsh. Same up here. There's some light foliage up there. I don't know what it is, but just some kind of grasses. A bit darker colour. And we'll just take that. I'm switching to the round tree and foliage brush and put a few highlights on these bushes here, look. Bit of white, bit of raw sienna. That. Bit of darker green to get the depth in the trees. Bit of light colour to give the impression there's lots of different trees here. The wind's getting up now. Hold on to your easel. Let's fill in this right hand side. Some raw sienna, I want some colour here. Ooh, it's windy. Nearly lost my hat there. Alright, I'm going to put this stone wall in here. But first of all, I'm going to put in the fence. Bit of Payne's grey, bit of brown, and I know where I'm going. There's a fence in here, look. And then we've got the wall. So here we go. The wall's quite dark. Using a bit of Payne's grey and a burnt sienna mix. to get a rich brown. More burnt sienna, that's too dark. Still too dark. And that wall, it's just about level, but I'm not going to make it level. I'm going to go across like that. A little bit darker on this side. And I'm going to use a knife and I'm going to scratch in a few coping stones. At this distance you can't see a lot, of course. Just scratching in the impression of some stonework. It's a bit wet on this side. Should be a third dry when you do this. Right, let's see what I can do with this lot here. There's a group of trees in here. So I'll put these in with the angle brush. Again, there's some kind of fir tree. Payne's grey, a bit of burnt sienna, a bit of sap green, giving me a rich green. And I'm coming down from that point there, so my trees are directly underneath here like this. I'm going to put the trunks in. I can see there's a whole range of trunks in here. Like that. And again we'll just take it down a little bit further in parts. There's a lot of trees in this painting. Just want to create this edge down here. Small brush. Just get some depth underneath there. Some raw sienna in here. Just building this area up a little bit. Now between the two walls there's a nice bit of soft green. And then I'm going to show you how to paint sheep. I'm going to show you a simple way of painting sheep now. All we do is paint horseshoes. Just watch. I'm going to use a size 8 brush. I want some Payne's grey and some burnt sienna. I'm going to paint them dark to start with. Don't worry, I will turn them into white sheep. So here we are, we'll put some horseshoes in, look. There's a horseshoe, There's a horseshoe. We don't want them all in the same line. There's a horseshoe. There's a horseshoe. There's a horseshoe. There's a horseshoe. There's another horseshoe. Horseshoe there, couple over there. We'll have a horseshoe down here. Another one here. Another one next to it. And one there. And we'll have one there. Now, listen carefully. I will say this only once. This sheep's is looking to the right. You do a second horseshoe to make the body bigger. That one's looking to the left. That one's looking to the right. That one's looking to the left. That one's looking to the right. That's to the left. That one's to the left. That's to the right. Now then, we need to put the head on or they get terribly upset. And all we do for the head is a little triangle. So there's a triangle there for its head. There's a triangle for its head. There's another triangle for its head. There's a triangle. There's another one. There's a triangle. Legs are optional. If they're in long grass that haven't been shorn, you won't see the legs, but I'm reliably told there's one in each corner. Now the shadow underneath is very important. Just link them to the ground with a bit of shadow. I'll switch to a size 8 brush, then we'll turn them into white sheepses. Put some shadow underneath like that, link them to the ground. Right, now we need to let that dry now, and then we'll put them into white sheep. Here we go. Paint wants to be a bit wetter. Make sure the heads are linked on or they get very upset. When you get to the rear end, you go the other direction. Because they're well rounded, these sheep. Like that look, and you go the other direction. Rear end, go the other direction. Just a simple, easy way of filling a field full of sheep. You have to do them in several stages. I'm going to give the sheep a bit of body now. I want to get the shadow underneath the coat. So I'm going to use a bit of Payne's Grey with a little bit of alizarin crimson, and I want to just get that bit of dark underneath. It makes all the difference, it gives them a bit of body look. Gives them a three-dimensional look. Once this is dried, the shadow effect, I'm going to put some nice crisp white on. Then I'm going to put a little bit of red on its back. But I'm far too young to tell you what that's for, but the farmer may know, and we'll be expecting some nice spring lambs. So let's put some nice clean white on. Nice crisp white I want, using the rigger brush, and we'll go down quick strokes. Now when you're painting, you've got to be a sword fencer. There's no point in using a nice textured paper if you're going to draw something and just fill it in. That's not painting. Quick strokes, quick twitches. I get lots of those, you know. And that just breaks up the coat using the texture of the paper and you get a much more natural effect. There we are, look. A little bit of white on the nose. Here we go again, moving along, a bit more white. Start at the top of the back and just twitch down, covering that bit of shadow that we've already put on underneath. Just go over it, a few quick twitches, and you get that nice broken coat effect. There we are. When you start painting, what you don't do, I see so many of my students come on my courses and they've been into a shop and they bought cheap paper with no surface on it, shiny paper, they bought cheap brushes that don't work, and they bought palettes that are too small. There's a school of thought that says buy cheap paper, cheap paints, cheap brushes. My advice to you is don't. You've got enough troubles when you learn to paint if your materials don't behave as they should. Buy the best quality materials you can afford. A nice rough paper, sable synthetic brushes are perfect, and a nice good sized palette. I use a couple of dinner plates. Now I want a little bit of red now, a bit of alizarin crimson, and I'm just going to put a bit of on the mark, look there. A bit of red on the back. Well, there's going to be some stock of lambs here. Right, let's just build this up a little bit. I want a little bit of raw sienna across this grass to warm the grass up. Very useful ploy for warming up grass. Nice bit of soft raw sienna and a bit of clean water if I can find a bit. And we'll just go across, look. Add a bit of warmth to that grass. A bit of raw sienna just warms everything up. Put a bit across here, look. Make sure you don't wipe out your sheep. And I'm going to have a good wiggle now. It's always important to have a good wiggle now and again. I'm using my rigger. I'm just using a bit of Payne's Grey and a bit of burnt sienna, and I want a bit of shadow in here, look, so we're going to go. You've got to be bold here, don't be frightened of it. Just a bit of shadow on that grass. Have another bit over here, look. Let's go with a bit of shadow from the clouds. Anything, but it's important to break up that long stretch of greenery. You can flick bits up and show a few tufts of grass if you want. That's what I need. We'll do a bit across here, a bit more, I think. Just have a good wiggle. Do you good, it will. Just a bit of a wiggle like that, bit of shadow on the grass. Yeah, that's improved it. I'm just going to finish off I want to darken the bottom of this stone wall here. Just to link it to the ground. And I just need to pick about a little bit with these trees. I want some green on there. So it's back to the angle brush when I find it. Got to be it. Bit of sap green, a bit of raw sienna, and let's have a look. They're quite dark those, but there's a green element to it. Put a bit of green in there. Bit of Payne's Grey gives me a darker green. Bit more Payne's Grey and burnt sienna. get that rich colour. Now let's have a look what we need to do here. Switching to the other round brush. Let's put a few trees in. I'll just tidy these trees up and we'll put the mount round, we'll have a look at it. When you've got a whole band of trees like this, it's important to just give an indication that it's made up of lots of different trees and bushes. There's a whole stretch up here. Good idea to stand back and have a look. We'll have a bit of lighter colour on here. All I'm doing is stippling to put on a range of lights and darks. And of course up here we've got all sorts of trees and shrubbery. Now, where do I need to add a few highlights? Right, let's do something with these trees. I'm not happy with these. Just put those trunks back in again. There's a bit of shadow down here. Just use a bit of burnt sienna, put a bit of shadow in here. This needs to be darkened. Once it's dried, I've lost some of the tone and it's not dark enough, so I'm just doing that again. There's actually little trees sticking up, so I'm just going to play a pitter-pat look and get some impression of trees stuck up on the ridge. You won't know they survive up there with all the wind, but they do. Just to give it some authenticity. And I definitely need to darken this here, look. Payne's grey, burnt sienna. Let's darken this again. All I need to do now, before we put the mount round, is add a few dark areas in here, because trees are dark on the inside, light on the outside. These little details just make the difference. Just put a few bits across here like this, and I want a few darker bits around the bottom here. Just dab it on very, very quickly like that, look, and then I'll spread it around. Let's go along here like this. And then we'll just move that around, just to get some dark in there. If you do it too dark or you overdo it, don't worry about it. Just get a bit of tissue and dab it off. You want to relax when you're painting. You don't want to be stressed. That's made a difference. And I'll do the same here. A little bit of shadow underneath here, a little bit of shadow in here. This is why I never finish a painting in one sitting. I tend to look at it for a couple of weeks and I go back and make a few changes that I feel are necessary. Surprising what you see when you look at it over a period, what you've missed. And I'm just going to put a bit more raw sienna on here. Bit of soft green under here. And wherever I have bits of the white paper, I'm going to just put a bit of weak raw sienna around here, just to give it a bit of sparkle. Let's put the mount round and have a look at our painting. Well, I've had a great day painting here at Stonethwaite. There's no substitute for getting out in the countryside and painting. You see, I believe anyone can be taught to paint. Paint is not a gift, it's more perspiration than inspiration. Practice makes perfect. Why not get out there and have a go? See you next time.